Hey guys, it's good to see you back. After last week, I wasn't sure whether or not some of you are going to say, hey, I'm coming back. One of the reasons why we do it this late in the year is that you have guys to walk through this with you. Because we just went on some holy ground last week. For you that weren't here last week, we talked about our moms, the mom factor in our lives. And when we talk about it, then we actually went and scored them. Up until this point in your life, you probably never once scored your mom. And we're pretty sure that you were probably going to burn in hell for eternity if you ever did it. But the reality is it's an important practice to take a look at some of the things you and I have come to believe. I scored my mom. I told you that were with us last week that my mom scored really well. 125 possible points. She got 110. And so when I give her that score, now, I want you to know, again, you know my mom's been dead for a number of years now. But I wasn't just kind of padding the score. That's actually a very realistic score. In fact, to get her down to 110, I actually had to be really tougher than I normally would be. My mom scores well. However, I want you to understand that even with a mom that scores well, they put stuff into your life that you're not sure that is necessarily healthy or believable. You know that I struggle with pornography, right? You know that from the age of 12 to 27, that was an addiction in my life. Now, I'm 57, so 30 years free from it, but that was really a huge drive in who I was. At the root of pornography, at the heart of it, is that people are not valuable, people are to be used, and in essence, it's solved around you must keep this thing hidden because you don't want people to know they're not valuable, you don't want people to know they're being used, you want them to somehow or another think that everything's okay. So in essence, you learn to lie. Now, my mom would have never taught me to lie. Now, some of your moms might have, really, but my mom never would have, but she did. She didn't mean to. I'm not going to tell you that my problem with pornography is connected to my mom. Although wanting to be taken care of by women, some of that comes from her. It's my choice. I'm not going to tell you that my deception in pornography was from my mom. It wasn't. But some of the beliefs in me came from something that was part of her life. I think I told you guys last week. In fact, I know I did. I told you that my mom was, we were in a very religious, narrowly focused religious family. Ours was like one of those, I don't know what kind of world you were raised in. My world was so conservative that there was a list of things I wasn't allowed to do. I wasn't allowed to smoke, even if I was on fire. I wasn't allowed to drink. I'm not even sure we were allowed to drink water. We weren't allowed to drink. I knew that. We weren't allowed to dance. Oh, my goodness. Even if your feet were on fire, you just stood there and smoldered away. We weren't allowed to do a lot of things. We certainly weren't allowed to have sex before we were married. We weren't, all that stuff was all part of our culture. Some of those are pretty healthy. Sex before marriage, pretty healthy concept. But some of them get a little, fuzzy after a while. Yeah, I don't think it's really wise necessarily to do some of those things, especially to excess. But in my family, we weren't even allowed to play playing cards. We played this game called Rook, which is like playing cards, but without the Suicide Kings and the One-Eyed Jacks. It was like they were somehow evil. But my mom loved pinochle. And you can reconfigure a rook deck to play pinochle, but you have to actually really use playing cards to play pinochle. We all love pinochle. It was a great game. So because my mom wanted to play pinochle, because we thought playing cards were wrong, whenever we were playing pinochle, if somebody knocks at the door of our house, we had to hide the cards. Now, and most of the time, it was just put them underneath the table and see if we can get rid of them. And if they come in, then you got to put them all together and then bury them some pile somewhere, right? We had to hide the cards. Now, I remember distinctly playing the game, knocking at the door. It was back in the days when you had salesmen stop by your house, your neighbors would stop by your house. People didn't have to call first. They just come over, right? There's a knock at our door. And my mom has this phenomenally good hand. You can see it in her eyes. She is so incredibly frustrated. So she sticks the cards underneath. And when whoever got the door, I can't remember, it might have been Lynn, whoever got the door, when they got the door and we found out it was a person, you could just see this disgust in my mom, who we just couldn't lay the cards on the table and play. We had to put them all together, right? This amazing woman scores 110 out of 125. Godly woman, a woman I love and to this day respect. And I will tell you, she is in God's presence in heaven because of her faith in Christ, and the transformation that I've seen in her is just so evident. I mean, it's just awesome. I can't wait to see her in heaven, right? But if I get to heaven and she's hiding playing cards underneath the table, I'm going to be extremely disappointed. See, what my mom taught me in doing that was there are times when it's appropriate to be deceptive, times when it's appropriate to hide. Remember when I talked about bad armor? Bad armor is when you're starting to guard against certain things. Now, as we went back and looked at the windows of our souls last week, guys, some of you, those were not good windows. And some of them, they were windows that were pretty cool and good memories, you know, when we considered our moms. Here's what I want you to do now, though. Wherever you were with the window of your soul, I want you now to take what you've learned and let it grow. Let it grow into brand new truth. The empty window box that was there last week, we now fill it. You might be recognizing the truth that your mom gave you is good and valuable and you keep it engaged, or it's pulling it out of your life. This is really asking a question. Trail number 20 is asking us, so what do you believe? What do we believe? What do we believe to be true that's come from our past, or from the windows of our soul? What do we believe to be true that is now flourishing in our life? Some of it might need to be pruned out. Some of it needs to be placed in and grown even further. Some of it will be brand new replants as you take truth and move it forward, all right? We're going to work through what we've been calling chainmail. So walk over with me to what we've considered as the view of our moms and our dads and how we view our past. Chainmail has two protective layers. It has filters and it has beliefs. Chainmail has two distinct areas. Now, if you noticed, last week we talked about beliefs and filters. Now we're talking about filters and beliefs. Filters and beliefs come at it a little bit different. Now I want to talk about what you've received, what was given that became the links of this into the beliefs that you now are. All right? This is where we need to move with this. Now understand this. This chainmail right here and this put together is 80 pounds. 80 pounds put on you, over you. But in reality, you don't put on chainmail. It actually is in you. So in essence, you're carrying around 80 pounds of weight sort of inside of you that will affect what you come to decide about from your core. Chainmail affects what decisions you make, because in chainmail are beliefs that have come from filters. So let's review real quick for us what these are. Filters. Filters are a product of previous life experiences that affects the content of what we see and believe. Very rarely am I going to ask you guys to write the same things twice. But you wrote this down last week. You're writing it down again. This time we're leading with filters. Filters are what we did last week. We took a look at our moms, saw how they scored. Anywhere from a potentially low score to a high score of 125. All right? How did your mom score? That's all rooted in the filters. Now there's another side to this. It's your beliefs. Beliefs are the thoughts and ideas that we have come to trust as true. Beliefs are the things that you and I have come to believe as true in our lives. Let me give you an example. Growing up as a kid, I remember I told you how my mom was a phenomenal cook, but she not necessarily was a healthy cook. I mean, we always had vegetables. That was always there, but we always had desserts. Actually, I actually grew up believing that a Twinkie was part of a food group that was part of a food pyramid. A Hostess Twinkie was just what you needed to eat. Now, I don't know all the ingredients in a Twinkie, but I'm pretty sure, and I apologize to you people who work for Hostess, I'm pretty sure that there's not a whole lot in it that's really probably great for you. But in my belief, until I started to actually read the labels on things and calorie counts and understand where the fat grams come from and all that, my beliefs were, hey, Hostess Twinkies are just as good for you as a piece of celery. Now, that sort of came out of the world in which I lived in. It got filtered into my life. Now, we have a bunch of stuff like this that we've come to believe. And so I thought I'd read you a couple statements. That these are things I've come to believe because of the way my mom raised me. And one of these I know are going to be true for you. Here they are. This is my mother who taught me to appreciate a job well done. If you're going to kill each other, do it outside. I just finished cleaning. I love that with Mom. Number 2, Mother taught me about religion. You better pray that this will come out of the carpet. 3, my mother taught me about time travel. If you don't straighten up, I'm going to knock you into the middle of next week. Actually, that was more my dad would have taught me that one than my mom. My mother taught me about logic. If you fall out of that swing and break your neck, you're not going to go to the store with me. Well, that's good thinking, Mom. My mom taught me about foresight. Make sure you wear clean underwear in case you're in an accident. To this day, man, I just want dirty underwear with holes in it. Just to prove, I don't want to be in an accident, so I'm going to avoid that, right? That's sort of the way Mom taught us. My mom taught me about irony. Not ironing, irony. Keep crying and I'll give you something to cry about. Oh, that was always a confusing one to me. This is my favorite one. This is one, my mom did say this to me a lot. My mother taught me about the science of osmosis. Shut your mouth and eat your supper. That was a hard thing to do. I just couldn't get it in there. My mother taught me about contortionism. Will you look at that dirt on the back of your neck? Man, that's hard to do. My mom taught me about hypocrisy. If I've told you once, I've told you 1,000,000 times. Don't exaggerate. My mother taught me about the circle of life. I brought you into this world and I can take you out. Number 14, my mom taught me about the behavior modification in my life. Stop acting like your father. This one, she taught me about anticipation. Just wait until you get home. Oh, that was always bad. Or this one, taught me about receiving. You're going to get it when you get home. No matter what was happening, getting home was not going to be a positive experience. I like this one. She taught me about things that were kind of funny. When that lawnmower cuts your toes off, don't come running to me. I always thought that was a good one. She taught me about genetics. You're just like your father. Never a good moment. And she taught me about justice. One day, if you have kids, I hope they turn out just like you. See, we all have these kind of things that Mom's taught us, and those are kind of fun. They're kind of funny things. As a matter of fact, I have to be honest with you. When Cole was born, my first grandson, when I said to Josh, there's a couple things I'm going to explain to Cole that he needs to do to his father just to pay you back. That's one of the fun things about being a grandpa, right? Turn out just like you, you know. Those are things that I think that are fun. But the reality is, guys, there are some things that you've learned that are healthy and growing and developing all the flourishing in your life you need to have as you look back at the window of your soul. And there are some things you need to know that you have to prune out and change because they've messed up your thought process. Okay, we're going to evaluate our beliefs and their effects on our view of the forest, just like we did last week. We're going to evaluate them. Now, here's what we're going to do. Grade each question on a scale of 1 to 5. 1, pessimistic or negative. I'm not positive about this experience. It's not good. Number 5 would be optimistic and positive. So as you score yourself here, 5 is good, 1 is bad. 5 is what I'm glad I have that belief. I feel positive about that. I feel like it's what I should be. 1 is I have this belief. I really feel like it shouldn't be there. All right. Now understand, you're not going to evaluate your mom. You're going to evaluate your beliefs. You're not evaluating a parent. You're actually not looking back in the window of your soul. You're actually looking at the window box of your soul. What you're looking at is what you're growing outside of the window, outside of the past, what you're growing now forward. And growing in your life are the belief systems that are going to enable you to do what you're designed to do. All right? So let's go through. We'll evaluate together. Number 1, presence. Do you feel or expect to be alone? Do you feel or expect in your life to be alone? Now, you need to understand something. When you and I walk into a crowded room, do you feel like everybody notices you or nobody notices you? Do you feel like you're invisible? Do you feel like you're important? You know, as students, when we were growing up in school, there were the cool people, the cool groupies, the invisible people. I don't want to be a geeks, and the geeks, right? They were the 5 categories. The invisible people would feel like they're alone in the crowd. Do you feel like that? Do you feel like you are not engaged with other people? Now, as you score yourself, 1 to 5, score yourself somewhere in there. Do you feel like you, and I love the way we say it, do you feel or expect to be alone? How do you deal with alone? I don't ever expect or feel alone. In fact, I long to be alone sometimes. We just have a few minutes by myself. I'm constantly surrounded by people, constantly engaged with people, but constantly engaged with people that I feel like are engaging with me, and I'm engaging with them. So I'm a 5 on this one. Now, just so you understand, we're going to grade ourselves when we get all done here. We're going to do what we did last time. We're going to see what kind of beliefs we have. You'll find that your number will correspond to your mom's number. You will find there's some similarities. And the more similarities there are to that number, the more her filters have walked into your beliefs. So the chainmail is made up of things from her. So that's what you're going to sort of see how they go together. Now, specifically, some match up. Like the one we just did, the first one I just asked you about will match up with the first one I asked her. The difference is we did 25 evaluations of your mom. You're going to do 18 evaluations because we've sort of done a sum total of them about what we believe. So some will match, some won't. But they're all sort of correspond. And you can kind of see, did I get there because of something my mom taught? Like I told you, some of my belief about hiding things, some of my beliefs about the fact that you could do the wrong and get away with it came from how my mom approached hiding the playing cards. That doesn't blame her. It just says that sort of gave me some permission. All right, chainmail, how that weighs into our life. All right, look at number 2. Emotional sensitivity. How aware are you of your feelings? Emotional sensitivity. How aware are you of what you feel? This has everything to do with boredom. It has everything to do with anxiety. How quickly do you get to the side of your brain that makes you go, wow, I get that. I feel that. How fast can you say that was a feeling and legitimize it and understand it? Or do you deny it, you compartmentalize, you keep it out? Now, remember, I told you, we as guys, when we have a problem, we tend to throw it in the closet and close the door and ignore it. That's compartmentalizing. What we're actually doing in this whole experience together, the nice of the 21st century as we do Warrior Clarity Night, is we're opening our closets and pulling that stuff out. How good are you doing that? Are you 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? All right, look at number 3. Number 3. Personal recognition. Do you assume that others will understand you and want to get to know you? Do you understand that you are that kind of person that people want to see, understand, get to know? Do you have a sense about yourself that you offer something when you walk in a room? Remember I talked about the 5 stages of a student's life? Or the 5 categories? You're the cool person. The cool person everybody wants to get to know. Cool groupies are groupies who make cool people cool because they want to get to know them. Are you in those categories? If you're in that, you're what we would call in the upper levels of the food chain in a high school environment, right? If you're invisible, you're not picked first, you're not picked last, but you're doing okay. But if you're in the bottom level, I don't want to be a geek or geek crowd. Geeks don't mind it. They're cool, they understand, they feel good about who it is. That all impacts how you view yourself and others. How do you score yourself on that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. What do you believe about you? Look at number 4. Friend availability. Do you believe that people care about you and will help you when you have a problem? Do you believe that people will care about who you are? If you're in need, they'll respond to your need. We've gone through a very kind of humiliating and cool experience through Caleb's cancer. Let me explain to you how it's humiliating. It's humiliating because people have been taking care of us. Now you say, well, why is that humiliating? Because I like to take care of people. You know how I told you about that? Yeah, people bring meals. People come and clean our home, repaint Caleb's room. We've had all kinds of things take place in the journey that we've gone through with cancer. It has been a humbling and yet great experience. Do you feel that people want to be not only with you, but do you feel like they're going to care about you and help you? Look at number 5. How people are. Do you think that others can take care of themselves? Do you believe that people can take care of themselves? Are they weak and needy? And what do they have? I want you to score yourself now on this. How well do you believe that? Before you score yourself, though, I want to talk to you just for a minute about women. I say to you this all the time. A man's job is to protect the heart of a woman. Matter of fact, the man's job is to protect the heart of every woman. Secret Service agent for the president. Now, if you think for a moment I'm saying women are needy, women are weak, women are somehow or another can't make it without us, oh my goodness, I have so miscommunicated to you. When I say to you protect the heart of every woman, what I'm saying is protect her value and her worth so she can flourish, so she can become all that she's supposed to be, right? So I think sometimes we have to be very careful. As your view of another person is going to be connected to some filters that are in your life. If your mom was always weak and needy, maybe you're viewing women as weak and needy. It's really interesting. I protect the heart of every woman. I protect the heart of Lynn's life like you cannot imagine. But I've never once thought she's weak and needy. All right? So understand that. How do you score on that, 1 to 5? All right, look at the next one. 6, my way or the highway. Can you develop a close relationship with others who have a different viewpoint from yours? Can you have a relationship with somebody who thinks differently than you do? This is my lowest score on this test. I got a 2 on this one. Now, that might make you all of a sudden just get alarmed. Who in the world have I listened to all this time? I scored 2 on this because there are people that I sort of discount. They're actually, you'd be surprised why I discount them. People that sometimes I feel like they're smarter than me, I discount. People who can do certain things I can't do. People who don't speak a language I can understand because I can't understand it, I discount. I don't devalue the people. It's just it's funny how that kind of works. How did I get to a point where I discounted people? I looked at my mom's test. My mom scores 125, 110 out of 125. I looked at her test. She scored low on this one too. This correlated, this number 6 correlated to that one, number 6. And what happened with my mom is, remember I told you how she had this view of if you weren't a follower of Jesus, you were somehow, not to be around? That was the way I grew up. If you believe something differently than we didn't go in your house. We didn't hang out with you. It was like this wall was around us, like we had to be protected. And somewhere as I was growing up, I got this belief that some people are to be heard and some people not to be heard. Some people are to be valued and not to be valued. And may I tell you that if my mom was here right now, she would say, I don't believe that. I don't want to believe that. I don't want that to be part of our life. And I'm pretty sure that I certainly can't say it's her fault, but I will tell you that I can connect her behavior to my belief. Filters to belief. So when you understand that, you begin to say, okay, I see how I'm scoring, why it goes the way it goes. I think that those understandings, those freedom, expand who you are. Dwight Eisenhower is one of the warriors, one of the guys we want to consider. He's the 34th president of the United States. Dwight Eisenhower, as the 34th president, was actually a pretty good president. He was an amazing general, led the Allied invasions. You know all the history of the Second World War with General Eisenhower. But maybe what I want you to know is about his mom. His mom, Mrs. Eisenhower, was a woman that was very, very pacifistic in her nature. She was a woman that his dad was very hard and cut and dry, my way or the highway kind of guy. She was really almost like a psychologist and very caring and engaging and valuing her kids. But she was a pacifist. I'll say that again. She was a pacifist. Her son becomes the leader of the most significant invasion of the Second World War. What happened was Dwight Eisenhower came home one day and said, I would like to go to West Point. And his mother was so into helping him become what he was designed to be, other than what she wanted to make him into, that she supported and embraced it. There is something very significant about that. Eisenhower became a man who would trust the people around him. When he became the President of the United States, one of my favorite stories about him is the very first day in office. An aide walked in with a letter and handed it to him. And he said, please don't ever give me an unopened letter again. I don't have time to open a letter and read it all. You read it, highlight it, and tell me what I need to see. I trust you to do that. He's valuing people. He gets that from his mom. So this quote that I'm going to put on the screen for you makes a lot of sense. This is from Eisenhower. Motivation is the art of getting people to do what you want them to do because they want to do it. Because they want to do it. Eisenhower is a leader that I think comes from a mom who taught him to value people as they were, because she valued him and his journey. His two brothers, both very successful, but did not go anywhere near the military. But she supported, a pacifist supported her son, moving in a direction that was going to fulfill his calling, what he was longing to do. Look at number 7. Flexible living. Do you live life expecting change to regularly occur? How flexible are you? How aware are you? How aware are you that you're in business and that social media has arrived? All right? You should see me texting. It takes about a month and a half to say hi for me. I watch my kids while they're watching TV, Facebooking, and engage in 3 conversations. I don't know how they do it. I'm not sure how to do it. There are changes happening all around us. If you're in business, are you aware of the fact that you need to be involved in Facebook? Are you aware of social media and Twitter and everything else? Are you aware of that involvement? Are you able to change? Or are you saying, this is the way we do business? We've always done business this way. How are you? Where are you in flexibility? Whether it be in each area of your life, because change, the force around you, is changing. That's the way of life. How do you do with that? 1 to 5. Number 8. Half full or half empty? Are you an optimist in mood and belief? Half full or half empty? How do you view life? If you are in any way going to be a leader, and you are, because you're going to be a knight of the 21st century, pessimistic leaders get pessimistic followers. Optimistic get optimistic. How are you? Where are you? And you've been hit by life. Man, you've had enough people disappoint you, enough damage. Do you view life as half empty or half full? Do you believe it full of possibilities? Do you believe it on the way down? Where are you on that? How do you score? All right? Next one. Sober or not? Do you expect yourself and others to maintain some behavioral standards of self-control? Are you one of those guys that are you basically saying self-control is the norm? Or, hey, eat, drink, be merry, tomorrow you die. If you're in that category, you're going to score yourself low on this question. 1 or 2. If you're in the kind of person that you say, you know what, no, it's extremely important for me to be aware of the faculties around me, to be aware of my entire core in making decisions, and you got to make decisions all the time, so you make judgments that are sober so that you are in control to one degree or another. How are you doing that? 1 to 5. All right, look at the next one. Next one says this. Fear factor. Do you believe reasonable risk is a mandate for growth and achievement? Do you believe that reasonable, I like that word reasonable, risk is a mandate of growth and achievement? Are you willing to step out of your zone of comfortability and do what's necessary as you follow the calling in your life? Reasonable risk. Are you very cautious? Everybody else decides to jump in before you do. Are you the first one in without ever checking to see whether there's rocks below? Neither one of those are healthy. It's reasonable risk. So how are you doing? 1 to 5. How do you fall in that area? There's a story in the Bible that you'd find in your nightly news. The guy's name is Goliath. He's rather large. He's actually over 9 feet tall. He has chainmail on him. He has armor on him. I mean, his chainmail alone weighs 120 pounds. This chainmail weighs 80. This man, Goliath, is a seasoned veteran fighter. All he does is kill people. He has the tip of his spear. You know, when a bullet goes through you, it's a couple ounces. It does a lot of damage. The tip of his spear, 15 pounds. It's on the ends of this like long weaver kind of javelin kind of thing, and he's good at it. He has an armor bearer who walks in front of him just carrying his shield because the weight of the stuff on him is so much. He comes out and he challenges the nation of Israel in the battle. He's the enemy. The nation of Israel is fighting this enemy. They're called the Philistines, and he's one of them. And he walks into this valley and he goes, "You bring me your best fighter, and I'll take him on. I will win. If I lose, we'll be your slaves. I won't lose, though. If you lose, you'll be my slave." And every time the nation of Israel and their soldiers would run, going, who's going to take on the 9-foot dude with all this stuff? There will be a young man that will enter the scene. The young man who enters the scene is named David, King David, the one I talked about with Bathsheba, the one I told you about dancing in front of the ark. King David will enter the scene, and David will decide, and he's really like a junior high kind of age, 14, 15-year-old kid, kind of scrawny, he's the smallest of all his brothers. He says, "I'll fight the guy." Now, Goliath can't think outside of his zone. He thinks big fighters and everything else. So he mocks David. He threatens David. David says, "Dude, you can say whatever you want. I'm going to take you down." David takes some stones, throws them at him, and drops him to the ground. Here's Goliath. He has had so many beliefs, so many things that thought he was safe, that he, from his past, has come to the conclusion that he could do something he can't do. Guys, when your beliefs leave you vulnerable, you're going to get dropped. So walking through this is extremely important. Look at the next one we want to test ourselves on. As we look and as we consider the whole factor that Goliath should have been afraid of David, but he wasn't, think about this one, number 11, work ethic. Do you expect to work hard for what you want to get? Are you of the entitlement mentality? Do you believe that somebody owes you? Do you expect to work hard? Or do you expect to be taken care of? Has an awful lot to do with where things go in your viewpoint. 1, it's all about me. Take care of me. I'm entitled. 5, I have the understanding that if it's going to happen, I'm responsible along with God to make it happen. All right. 12, self-value. Do you expect to be loved and cared for by others? Do you expect to be loved and cared for by others? Maybe the easiest way to know how you do with that is, do you express love well to others? Because see, if you expect to be loved and cared for by others, And if you expect that others will just value you, if you kind of live with that confidence, then you will love others well. Now, I don't mean by this, though. Be careful of this. You don't demand love. You just assume that you have worth and value. You're worth loving. In essence, you have a pretty good self-view. How do you score yourself on that one? Do you see yourself love? And how well do you do in that? Tell me how well you love others. That'll tell you how this whole thing goes. All right, look at the next one. Lifelong learner. Do you enjoy learning each day? Do you enjoy the journey of learning each day? I want you to think back to that moment as a child when the first time you ever saw a crayfish. Remember the first time you ever saw a crayfish? You're playing around the creek and you move a stone and out shoots this little lobster. And it doesn't go forward, it goes backwards. And you chase it. That's learning, that joy of learning. Have you lost that incentive to move a rock and find a crayfish? I don't like to read. I just don't. Roy loves to read. I've been around a lot of very, very wise people who love to read. My sons, two of my sons are readers. I mean, they read an awful lot. And Lynn loves to read. I don't. So I have to keep forcing myself to learn. Because a lot of learning is done that way. There's also learning done through experience. I'm the kind of guy that took a carburetor apart when I was like 14 years old. Found out the carburetors had a lot of parts. When I put it together, found out that leftover parts from a carburetor are not a good thing. You probably actually need them all to make it work. We learn. How do you learn? Are you a learner? Are you still learning? 1 to 5. How are you scoring yourself on that one? Ability to play. 14. Do you expect life to have some fun in it? Are you enjoying life? Is life fun? That's pretty easy. Are you enjoying life? Do you find that today is a day you're enjoying, today isn't a day you're enjoying? And some days I don't always enjoy. My score here, sort of in the middle. My family will tell you there are some days I enjoy life greatly and some days I'm just a little too serious, overwhelmed, or whatever it is. My score is probably about, 3 on that one. Look at the next one. Responsibility. Do you expect to pay the consequences for your bad decisions? Do you expect to pay the consequences for your bad decision? I scored very well on this one. Yes, I do expect to pay the consequences. Again, that's some learned things. If all your life you got away with stuff, you think you're going to keep getting away with stuff. Learned beliefs, filters in, right? Look at 16. Marital loyalty. Do you believe that you can only be truly intimate with one person? Do you believe that you can only be truly intimate with one person? Now this, I just want to tell you about my girl. See, I believe that all people are valuable. I believe that my sons are worth dying for. I believe that their wives and girlfriends are extremely valuable. And I believe my grandson is the second perfect guy ever born. But Lynn is number 1 in my life. That's my belief. It's actually connected to some of the things I've watched in my mom's fierce loyalty to my dad. It's also some things I've learned as I've gotten intimate with God. This is a 5 for me. It's not a hard one for me. I need to ask you, do you honor the woman you love by not living with her until you're married to her? Do you honor the woman you love by only loving her and not sharing your affection, not having those emotional affairs, and not playing on those edges? How do you do in this area? 1 to 5. All right? Look at number 17. Financial skills. Are you satisfied living within your means? Are you satisfied with living where you are? Are you okay with it? We talk to our guys a lot about this concept, and I probably should just bring it up to you. We talk about 10-10-80. I love this concept. It's really freeing. You give 10% of your money away so that you are aware of the needs of others. You save 10% so that you have something to take care of, so people don't have to take care of you, right? You're giving it away. You care for the needs of others. You put 10% away so that you don't necessarily need to be cared for by others. 80% you live on. 10-10-80. How do you do with your financial responsibility? How's that? How are you scoring in that area? Are you saving? Are you giving? Are you living within your means? Those questions, 1 to 5. All right. Last one, number 18. Forgiveness. Do you expect to forgive and be forgiven? Do you expect to forgive and be forgiven? Have you come to the place in your life when you mess up, you expect to get a second chance? Do you expect it of God? Do you expect it of others? We're going to spend actually a lot of time in this in 2 weeks. Because it becomes very much part of some of the situations that we grow out of our experience with our dad. Now, this is all about your chainmail. This is all about your beliefs. Where we go with this. Here's what I want you to score. Add up the numbers for your present belief scores. Possible points out of this are 90, right? We have 18 areas, 90 possible points. All right, add them all up. All right, good. Again, you accountants, I know you're waiting. All right, we got it. All right, write that number in there. Your points are whatever, and now add 35 to it. 35 to it, because if you do that, you're going to match your mom's score of 125 max last week, because we have more questions for her. And now, place this number from last week's of your mom's evaluation here. So in my slot, 110 goes there, whatever your mom's score is. So interestingly enough, my score is 105, her score is 110. So it's interesting how we correlate. Listen to this. Compare last week's number with this week's number. This is an indicator of how your mother's filters have impacted your beliefs. Now, I'm going to put this slide up, and I just want you to look at all the categories that you can do. These are your chain mail conclusions. Check one of these. No impact from mother. Like her in a good way, like her in a bad way, different from her in a good way, different from her in a bad way. Kind of put your numbers, look at the numbers, and then check the one you think is true. And to be honest with you, I'm sort of like her in a good way. I'm the second one. That's what I would check. What would you check? You check out this. Every once in a while, when we get to this point about our beliefs and who we are, I think that if I tell you stories from my life, it is or isn't consistent with where yours are. For example, when my mom was dying of cancer, remember I told you how she would rub my feet? Just before we put her in hospice, when in the final days of her life, I stopped over to the house one day and I was talking to her, and she reached down. Now she's in pain, right? She reaches down, she takes off my shoes and starts rubbing my feet. I'm in my 40s at this point, and she's still rubbing my feet. I wanted to pull them away. She says, "Don't you dare. Don't you dare." That's my background with my mom. I mean, think about that. It's just kind of an overwhelming thing. I know some of you haven't had that experience. So when I talk about my world, it sort of makes it confusing sometimes because your experience is different. That's why I like movies. Sometimes there's something about movies that just allow us an opportunity to think and do things differently. I want you to think about a movie called Take the Lead, and where a guy by the name of Pierre enters into an inner city school to help the students who are the troubled kids, the tough kids. How he got in there is he saw an event take place, an act of vandalism, got involved because he was a witness to it, got involved in trying to help the very students that were part of the whole process. And it's a fascinating story. It's actually a true story. I think his last name is Duplain, and he actually has schools that are all across the country now doing this, in elementary schools across the nation. It's about dance. Take the lead, and he has decided to teach these students ballroom dancing. These tough inner city kids from a variety of gangs, a variety of settings, all the tough kids, all in a room trying to work through it. As he's doing it, the students are being changed and challenged and becoming much more directed. He's starting to flourish. His beliefs are starting to help them grow. You know, their past is being altered by what's happening. But he's also pushing the limits to how a school thinks, right? And there's always one teacher. So let me give you this scene where he is going to take these students. Just consider this scene. It's cool. He's taking these students to an opportunity to dance on a big stage in a competition, ballroom dancing, against students that are from refined, well-paid-for world. He says, "We can do this. We'll figure out how to get the entrance fee money and all this. It's going to take hard work, but you can do it." And as he's encouraging them and calling them up, he's suddenly called to the principal's office. Augustine is the principal. She's fought for him. She believes in him. But there's this one teacher giving him a hard time, how his subject doesn't fit within their subjects of the school. And so in front of a parent association, a sort of like a parent-teacher association, people who make decisions about the extracurricular activities of a school, he's being told they're going to cancel the program. And the other guy goes, "This is just a waste. Of course we got to cancel this thing." And Pierre says to the people, "All I want to do with your children is to let them know something about them." He says, in fact, instead of me telling you, let me show you. And he asks us Augustine to stand up, and he says, dance with me. And he puts his arm around her waist and takes her hand, and he says, now we're walking, we're turning, we're moving, you're following, I'm leading. The other guy goes, Augustine, don't let him do this. She goes, shut up, it's my body, I'll let him do it. And as he's doing this, he says, all I'm doing is teaching dance. You know what's happening? She's trusting me as I move her about. And she's trusting herself. Your daughters will have far less chance to be knocked up if you teach them to trust themselves. And your men will be far more noble if they start respecting a woman. I am teaching respect and trust and nobility. I'm helping somebody learn different than their filters. I'm growing something big out of all this. As that scene fades, and the last line of the scene is so funny because the woman says, right? She says, the woman that was voting him out says, do you do night classes? Do you teach adults? I would love to have you teach us how to do the following things. Show respect and value lives and trust yourself and trust others. That's what this is about, guys, creating men that do that. In order to do that, you have to take a look at your filters, take a look at your beliefs, take a look at your chainmail, and decide whether or not your chainmail is true and right. So as you do this, when you have the right beliefs, you'll start to grow. Changing those windows into your soul as being the man you were designed to be. We're going to look at our dads next week. Be a little bit trickier, but I think it's going to be very powerful. See you then.